In our ongoing look at how society has changed, let's take a look at this educational documentary from the 1950s.
So no matter where you meet a stranger, be careful if they are too friendly. One never knows when the homosexual is about. Let's take the case of Jimmy Barnes. You see, Ralph was a homosexual, a person who demands an intimate relationship with members of their own sex.
All right, it's hard to imagine that kind of message in today's classrooms, but have things swung too far in the other direction, with 8-year-olds learning about sexual identity, 11-year-olds talking about oral and anal intercourse, textbooks like Are You a Boy or a Girl? And Gloria Goes to Gay Pride. Under pressure from parents, Premier Dad, who only has 4 kids to parent for real, agreed to hold off on this curriculum. But according to Ontario Education Minister Kathleen Wynne, after the election, they'll bring it back. You know, if they get re-elected. She forgot that part. Here are some gems that are on the Toronto District School Board's daily planner of key dates which get sent home with the kids. November 19th is Transgender Day of Remembrance. December 1st is World AIDS Day. December 17th, International Day to End Violence Against Sex Workers. February 7th, International Day of Zero Tolerance on Female Genital Cutting / Mutilation. February 12th, International Sexual and Reproductive Health Day. Big issues, folks, but how would you explain this to a 6-year-old? Toronto Sun columnist Christina Blizzard has been following this miseducation very closely. Hey, Christina.
Hey, Charles. I don't know. You know, when kids, they talk about sex education, you know, if they ask where they come from, you don't, you know, if they were asking the time, you don't give them the directions to Big Ben. Use your brains. I mean, it drives me crazy.
Could you just explain the politics of this for me? Because this is much more, to me, about politics and interest group politics than it is about education, and certainly much more about interest group politics than it is about sex or about education. So here's the question, Christina. What is it about the base of, say, voters for the Liberal Party which demands that Kathleen Wynne put something like this through? Where is it coming from?
Well, they have the core of the latte liberals in downtown Toronto who, you know, are very, you know, there's a large gay community. I understand that. Kathleen, of course, and I have huge respect for Kathleen. I think she's a really good politician and probably the next leader of the Liberal Party. But I just believe that she and some of the other gay members of the of cabinet really believe that the rest of the great unwashed, that kids as young as 8 need to discuss things like transgendered identities and gay sex. And, you know, for those of us who perhaps have raised a couple of kids, you know, you look at it and you think, this just does not make sense. It's not appropriate. It's not age appropriate. You know, maybe later in high school you can get into this stuff, but not at 8 or even 11.
Okay, Christina, here's what I don't get about that. If the gay and lesbian community, transgender community, all the various communities, if over the years they have wanted to be seen as normal, because the #1 word that drives them crazy is normal unless it's attached to them and their behavior, fine, and we understand that. If they want to be seen as normal, as mainstream, why would they advocate things that mainstream people aren't interested in and frankly many find obnoxious? I don't get that.
Well, I don't know, because I think it really hurts their case. I mean, look, we've all got gay friends, gay family members, and you know, frankly, I find that, you know, those people are quite, you know, don't really push this kind of an agenda. It's the groups within, you know, in downtown Toronto, these groups who advocate, who want, seem to take some kind of bizarre pleasure out of discussing these things in the classroom. in Extra, Kathleen was quoted saying that we really need to, we really need to discuss these things. We need to get into the classrooms early to discuss these things with young people. And, it's not something you hear from gay friends, whatever, but it is from this very militant political group of gay politicians.
It's interesting you should say that. Most of us, and certainly most of us who are working in media, come across and have friends and have business relationships with gay people, lesbian people all the time. It's not exotic. It's not a big deal. And it's normal. It's just the way things are. And we never hear from them, and I mean never hear from them, the idea that they think that this is a good idea. It is a small handful who claim to represent the whole group. And you know what it reminds me of, Christina? It reminds me of labor groups. You meet the average person who's a union member, and he or she is not into all of the various aspects of the extreme left-wing union agenda. And I think that's why sometimes when they're watching this show and listening to my radio show, sometimes they think that I'm talking about them when I'm talking about union politics. No, I'm not talking about the rank and file. I'm talking about some of the crazies who are leading their unions and some of the most militant of the activists. And I think we've got the same issue here.
Yeah, exactly. And what Kathleen Wynne is saying in this article is, they've got to get all this stuff outside the traditional Toronto group who sort of push this agenda. They are very interested in bringing this to rural Ontario, into Catholic schools. And last year, when they tried to get this new revamped sex education program through the ministry, it was the Catholic school board that balked and said, look, we're not teaching this to our kids. Thank you very much. We'll have an uprising from parents. And a lot of parents outside the Catholic system also said, look, you're not talking about this with my kids either. In fact, and ironically, at the end of the day, the person who was most important and influential in actually getting them to, we thought, kill the agenda, or kill the curriculum, we now find it's not dead, it's just hibernating until after the election. The person who was most influential was Premier Dalton McGuinty's mother, because apparently she didn't like it, and that's who talked to him. Apparently that's the reason he gave to us for backing down on this new curriculum.
Well, I only wish that I only wish that Dalton's mom were in charge of the green agenda. It probably wouldn't cost the country as much money as David Suzuki's influence is costing.
Well, I don't know why we just don't elect Dalton McGuinty's mother. She was the person who had the great good sense to tell her son to back off on the Lord's Prayer. Remember, he wanted to stop saying the Lord's Prayer in the legislature. And it was Mother McGuinty who said to him, "You're not doing that, son." So,
all right, so Christina, you and I would support McGuinty next Thursday as long as it's Mother McGuinty.
I would vote for her any day.
All right, is HUDAC, in the few seconds we have left, is HUDAC making an issue of this? If is HUDAC saying to folks, if you don't want this stuff coming back, vote for moi?
Well, he's trying to. We had an editorial board with him yesterday, and he's trying to talk about this. I mean, we were trying to get him to talk about other things, such as, this Muslim prayer in the schools. But yes, he is trying to turn this into an issue. I don't know if there's anyone out there, apart from just you and me, Charles, who care about this. But, I think this is important.
Christina, I agree with you. Thank you very much. And by the way, it's not just you and I. It's just self-evident. Many people do, but politicians try to stay away from this because they're so paranoid about the advocates doing negative ads on them. Christina Blizzard of the Toronto Sun, thank you so much.
My pleasure.